was a monster movie siege film, but involving one of the hottest issues of the day.
We can't abort. You have to have it.
When I saw that this girl is giving birth to a spider with a baby's head in the middle, I was like, I gotta do that movie.
My favorite movie actually is Rosemary's Baby, so I was hoping I could kind of be something along those lines.
Now you know why I can't have this baby, right? I mean, whatever's inside of me, it's evil.
How about warning? This movie is not for people with closed minds.
Pro-Life is the story of a girl torn between her family and a group of strangers she's asked to help her, and a monstrous influence that none of them expect.
I play Angelique. She's very religious and loves her family, obviously loves her father, and she's living with this burden where she knows she can't have this child and it has to be killed, but she's also very religious, so there's a lot of internal struggle there.
It's okay. We're gonna help you. I know you are. God brought you to me this morning.
Well, I don't know about that.
I do. He wants you to help me. God wants you to kill my baby.
You don't know the first thing about God or what he wants. In fact, you don't believe in anything.
Suffice it to say, I'm playing a guy that is really hard for me to understand. The very first thing John said to me was he feels Dwayne as a hero. And I said, well, good, because that's the only way I could play him. I cannot play him in any way that's arch or menacing.
The definition of a hero is somebody who has a singleness of purpose, and that's what this character has. Unfortunately, he put his faith in the wrong God.
I will. Whatever it takes. This doesn't make any sense.
We did everything you asked. Why punish us?
Even though Ron Perlman's character is sort of a beast, he gives a point of view that is a valid one and gives it in a way that's reasonable and understandable despite the rest of what his actions are.
I am going to fire twice, right? In this shot?
Yeah. It's not taking sides. It's really the story that counts. It doesn't matter whether you're dealing with the issue or not. It doesn't matter whether you present the issue. But if the story is good enough, then I think we're okay. And this is really just a monster movie, not much more.
Cut there. And reset for another one, guys.
John is just really good at taking a story and setting it in middle America and having it go to hell. Nobody's just one-dimensional. They're set in a real world. And yet we go, it's a monster movie, you know?
His movies have such a timeless quality about them because they just have this scope. I mean, a lot of it has to do with how his composition of the frame is. You only see silhouettes of stuff. He always likes leaving a lot to the imagination.
He doesn't really do any more than like 2 or 3 takes, so everything just feels really organic and really just kind of natural. And his way of giving direction, a lot of times he'll come up and be like, you know, just try something else. And that's fun, because it's like he gives you the room to just play.
He has this eye that is impeccable.
Right. You get what I'm saying?
Like right, I do, of course.
Right, a little gun, or bang,
you
bang.
see face as well, or just gun?
And he'll catch anything that's false or anything that's just wrong. And so you're free to try things and free to be as expansive as is possible.
He completely trusts that the actors he's hired are totally competent and know what to do, which is amazing. So you actually feel much more confident and you feel like you're working with somebody who trusts your instincts.
It's gonna go bang, bang, bang. You tell me where I have to win.
Well, there are a couple of moments in the film that might get you. Those are always fun to do. It's the rest of it that needs attention. It's everything that you do. It's the exposition, the character development, the setups. Everything has to be cared for, nurtured along.
The first draft of the script, I don't think was real enough for John. So he said, make it more real.
He didn't want this to be a piece about people with faith that mock them. He didn't want to belittle somebody that has faith. And it was important to him that Dwayne be a real person, somebody whose faith is important to him, but not a cartoon of faith.
God requires us to take action. We have been called.
Originally, the van was supposed to be covered with propaganda, with pictures of aborted babies, of slogans, things like that. And John was like, you know what? That's all they're going to see. They're just going to see the van. Can't do it.
When I think of what it must be like for a girl to walk in here.
The sequence in the script where the doctor is given the abortion by Dwayne is fairly explicit in terms of language.
And in fact, I think the line actually is Dwayne cuts the doctor from balls to asshole.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mom.
It's rough.
The entire history of children's genocide laid out under glass. Imagine that. A sentimental abortionist. Clear off that desk, boy.
It's not like, okay, well, how can we build a horrible torture scene? It's thematic. It absolutely plays to what the piece is about.
I can see why you picked this kind of work over being a real doctor. This is easy. Mess up, kid's already dead.
I think the most upsetting image in the whole film is the shot where he takes Bill's leg and puts it on his shoulder. It's a simple thing. There's nothing graphic or explicit about that, but what it says and what it does to you emotionally is so dark. And I think that is, it's the moment where I thought John summoned thunder in the movie.
When we wrote The Father, in all the drafts, not even just the first drafts, but all the drafts, the father is almost completely masked in shadow because we just wanted to give an impression
of size and strength. And we actually were under the impression that you would never really look at him.
Well, John likes to work with something that's there on the set.
Tilt your head back a little. Good.
And there's scotch light in those eyes.
Yeah, those eyes look pretty cool. Yeah. Very cool.
It had to interact with people. It had to lift things up. It had to come out of the ground. And so K&B designed an amazing monster.
We knew that nobody watching this episode would expect to see this big giant demon with the whole radio-controlled face and all articulated. They wouldn't really expect that watching a Masters of Horror. We went for the idea that this demon is sort of part of the earth. So we really wanted aspects of it to look like shale and rock, and we picked this very specific paint scheme that had blacks and browns and yellows in it. We sort of did a little bit of reverse painting where the highlights were dark and then the little cracks in between the suit were all light. I mean, we just wanted it to look different. We wanted it to look, you know, just creepy. The horns were literally gloss black. I mean, it took us about 6 weeks to build it. But when it showed up, you know, and of course John kept saying, oh, where's this big it's not gonna look like a big rubber guy in a suit, is it? I'm like, well, it is a big guy in a rubber suit. That's your job. You got a good DP, put a bunch of smoke around it, and it'll be fine.
Well, shooting the monster to make it look real just involved keeping the light as much off it as possible. Backlighting, that mixture of that yellow light, so when he's in the hallway where you get a good look at him, or when he comes up out of the ground. We had a lot of smoke. We had smoke that the fellow in the suit had to be stuffed underneath this set with the smoke guns going and bright hot lights in there, yellow light, and when the floor opened up, I mean, he must have been sweating like crazy. As John kept saying, less is more. Don't light him up too much. Keep the light off him. Keep the light off him.
The eyes were a really big part of it. I think Greg had a sketch where you couldn't see the eyes of the demon at all. And John said, no, I have to see the eyes, because this is a father who has come to the clinic to claim his child. And I want to see in the father's eyes the pain. And in the script, there was almost no mention of eyes. I mean, I think there was one mention, but it was just a very cold stare. It had nothing to do with, a father's grief.
Some people think it's the devil. Some people think it's something, some demon from another dimension or that lives beneath the world. Until the very ending, you think it's an alien from another planet that's impregnated her. I like that there's a little bit of gray area there, that it's up to your own interpretation.
With John, he really gives us complete free reign. He's like, whatever you guys think is going to be cool.
How hot does that get in there?
Pretty warm.
So you like to be in it as much as possible. Is that what you're saying?
We got to do an old school blood gag where one of Ron Perlman's sons gets shot in the neck, and we did a neck appliance with the bladder and plugged it, and 1, 2, 3, bang, and hit the extinguishers, and blood just shot everywhere. And I remember Ron Perlman was giving me the eye the whole time.
He didn't want to get bloody?
Well, yeah, he's like, you're not gonna get blood on me, right? I'm like, no, it'll be all right, just stand here. But he wasn't quite sure of us yet. He hadn't seen any of the monster stuff. He's like, yeah, all right.
There's a shot where Dwayne, played by Ron Perlman, takes out the security guard. So originally we shot a plate that looked like this. Now you can see he's got those ever-present tracking marks, and here's what was going to be the exit point for him. But when we got the final cut, John said, well, you know what, I don't care what he looks like on the ground afterwards. We want something bigger. Go big, big, big. So we did a full 3D representation of his face, and we took a portion of his head away, and we just built it up more and more and more, because he just said, it's got to be really cool. The hell with continuity.
What's interesting about the piece is how provocative it is, and how unstereotypical it is. And then, of course, it makes the sharp left turn, and then all values just go out the window. But it's horror, it's supernatural.
And it's not about us
trying to impose any sort of political message. It's a monster movie. We're not pro-choice, we're not pro-life, we're pro-monster.
This movie has in it every element of great horror movies, from suspense to thriller to intrigue to gore.
I've always been a fan of horror, and the thing about it is, no matter what is new about it, it's all basically the same. And the interesting thing about the horror genre is that we're all afraid of the same things. You and I are afraid of the same thing: death. We don't want to be loss of identity, loss of our loved ones. Anything you're afraid of, I am. And that's true of the whole world. We're all born afraid as babies, as children. So when we're making these things, you can sort of speak to the world and speak to all of us in it. And that's the fun of it.